to what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream and be judged from within, hunted by a power that cannot see past my skin. My views are viewed as ignorant, my truth.
That was a quick break.
Good morning. Welcome back to At the Round Table with me. I'm your host, Larry Elson, in studio with the rest of the family. To my right, Helen is back in this morning. Like I said, got a AAA updated, so she is good to go. And Brother Rhodes, the Rhodes Scholar, is in there. If you notice, folks, that is not the doctor over there. That is the Rhodes Scholar. The doctor is off. Dr. Bradley is off today.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, he's
well,
off.
he's taking care of home emergency.
Yeah, taking care of the home.
Yeah, he's doing a YouTube project. He's Googling it out. So, again, we want to thank our sponsor, the Money Store. For all your mortgage needs, get branch manager Corey Holbrook or call it area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726 is the number. And folks, they said if you've been paying attention as you should, the national debt just hit $40 trillion. $40 trillion. So the United States is paying almost $8 billion a day in interest. $8 billion with a B in interest daily.
And I'm curious, how does that impact us on a day-to-day? So people understand.
So absolutely great question, Helen. So the interest rates already went up. So if you're going out to buy a car, the interest rates have already increased. If you're trying to buy a home, the interest rates have increased. If you're trying to borrow money anywhere, interest rates. And matter of fact, the bonds that the United States government buys, all of that is affected. So people don't want to buy because there's a point where it's just not sustainable. You know, like if you think about it, you can't go withdraw money out of your bank account that you don't have, right?
Mm-hmm. True.
So the government has the rarity of being able to borrow money that they don't have with the promise to pay it back. But at some point, people are saying, "Yeah, man, that's just you're never going to be able to pay it
on our backs."
But you're never going to be able to pay it back because even the people that are working,
yes,
and now you look at it, there's less people working
yes.
right? So there's less tax revenue coming in.
Yes.
So
and you keep giving the tax breaks to these billionaires, to these corporations. Wait, where's the money going to come from?
Exactly.
All of us.
Well, there aren't many of us left, right? Because AI is eliminating a lot of jobs.
And a lot of people,
I mean, several of my neighbors who are working for places, they've just been replaced by AI.
It makes you wonder too, because I have a lot of my friends like are my age and around like. It seems like a lot of people have been having, even when you talk about having kids, a lot of people seem to have having to use like IVF or whatever else, or just not even be able to afford to have kids.
No, that's a big issue.
I use Dr. Bradley's analogy when people ask, how are your family? I said, expensive. They're expensive. So I know that, the need with Jamal and I do on site, I'm calling, like people are getting the information, they're passing along, and it's just not enough to take care of everybody. You do what you can do, but the need is greater than the supply.
Which is why, again, we'll go back to our original topic, right? It's that important for you when you do cast your vote. Look into those politicians that are on the ballot. Those who are the ones that are for a sensible economic policy, for having a balanced budget.
And then, again, the sad thing is, unfortunately, every time they do have the right or they have the opportunity to vote for the right person in office, unfortunately, a lot of times the message gets hijacked or
how would you recommend they get away from that noise?
Get to actually know not to personally get to know them,
but like research,
and see how they vote and see what they stand for.
Right.
Not just what just a headline, not the quick blurb or what have you, but actually read what the policy, what they've been doing,
educate,
and make sure that they've been consistent.
That is
and
true.
Speaking of voting, today is the start of early voting here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but particularly here in the Boston area. So it's starting today, Saturday, August 22nd through next Saturday, the 28th. You can vote early in several locations around the city: Mattapan, BCF, Mildred Ave, South Boston, Condon Elementary, Dorchester Murphy School, Jamaica Plain, the Muniz Academy, Hyde Park, another course to college, West Roxbury, BCYF, the Roach Center, Roxbury, Boston Community Youth, the Shelbourne, Back Bay, Central Library, Alston, Jackson Man School, and in East Boston, the Boston Boys Club Youth at Paris Street. So again, that early voting starts today. You have a week to do that, and you can also do your mail-in vote or at one of the boxes you see, and you can also drop your vote off at Boston City Hall or your town.
So and let everyone know that's today and tomorrow. So between 11 and 1 or 5 to 7 today and tomorrow. And it says all 10 neighborhood sites are open 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. for today and tomorrow. Only 2 days, today and tomorrow, where they're open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. to any of those locations that Larry mentioned there. And then also on the weekdays from 7 to 9 a.m., you also have City Hall is open all week. And then also Forest Hills, Ashmont. So those of you that are commuters, take the T. Forest Hills, Ashmont, Maverick, and Nubian Square and Sullivan Square and Ruggles, 7 to 9 a.m. on the weekdays as well.
Yeah. So I know I have Jamal, and I want to get you gentlemen's take on, like I said, people saying why it's not important. Yesterday, the Trump administration was applauding, I should say, that they had their first plane load of Haitian immigrants sent back to Haiti. Not knowing people have been in this country under the temporary protective status, and now they're being separated from their family and people. If you live in a community, some of your neighbors may not be with you longer, and they're not criminals. They're just neighbors, people who are here legally and haven't even had due process afforded them, and now they're back in a country where it's unrest, right? But I think the irony is that Donald Trump and his administration said that they went and grabbed these white people in South Africa because there was violence in that country and they were afraid for their lives. And yet you're sending back people to a place. I mean, but it's not racist. No, it's not racist.
It's Donald. It's
right. It's not racist. No, it's not racist.
And for our listeners to know, the TPS, the temporary protected status. So with that recent Supreme Court decision, it canceled out for those from Haiti, Syria, and Venezuela, as well as a number of other countries. So
aren't they invading Venezuela? Aren't they stealing the oil from Venezuela?
But not from South Africa.
I think it says El Salvador, Sudan, Ukraine, and Lebanon are still active, but only until either early September or through late November.
We'll see if the enforcement starts there. So, Jamal, I want to take you first. I want to get your take on this temporary protective status and folks being deported out of the country.
Well, the funny thing, and when I say funny, I don't mean
right?
Fun and strange. About this is the reverberations with a lot of the upper class are now saying and seeing, well, who's going to take care of Nana?
And who's going to be cleaning some of those hospitals?
Yeah, exactly. And it affects a lot of people. It does. And it's not just
people that they thought were invisible. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So this is that point now about a new class in America, a new class division, I guess, within all the working classes, because everybody has to work. But at what level do you work? So for the ones who are more, I will say, of a servant class in terms of servicing people or food, this type of thing, the upper class, who, however, they making their money, but they're not going to do those things. It's the old classic thing, the jobs that Americans won't do, right? So, this rhetoric, like much of the rhetoric that's come out of this guy, is going to end up biting them in the booty.
It already is.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not a good policy, what have you. And I forget right now because the focus has been on Haitians. But what is the other country as well? With Syria?
Venezuela and Syria. So it looks like as of late March in 2025, it looks like the top country was Venezuela that had about 600,000 individuals approved for temporary protective status. Haiti comes in at number 2 at about half that, about 330,000. Then El Salvador, Ukraine. But right now it's been canceled for Haiti, Syria, and Venezuela. And then you have a few more countries slated on board to expire TPS as well in about a couple weeks through to after Thanksgiving.
Right. So, I think America is going to be in for a rude awakening. And all of this, too, with the changes in weather. With the data center stuff, sucking up more water. We're getting more drought. All of this type of stuff. Europe is experiencing a major drought right now.
And they're predicting a warmer winter this month because of that El Nino. The waters are going to be warmer. Yeah.
Well, and then also,
hold on, let me just say this. And not for nothing, we laugh about stuff like that because us up here in Boston, like, well, I don't, I'm good. I won't have to shovel as much this winter. But the devastating effects that are happening to the global, just the whole
the coral reefs, the ocean, right? Things that we don't realize they have a domino effect. Even something people see, bees, right? How they move around and pollinate, that affects our food.
It does, and we've also had cyclical storms that have happened, like where sometimes there were storms. We've had storms, some of these like these for either decades or years past. But I think part of it too is also to consider the fact that you kind of wonder is almost like this. We talk about the national debt rising, right? We talk about taxes rising and so forth. There's got to be a balance somewhere where we are where do we go from supporting the world's community to making sure that we take care of our our fellow neighbors and so forth as well, right? Like in terms of how do we balance that? And I think a lot of it too is like people have been very exhausted as of late. I can tell from my family and like her in the community there, where they talk about like, how are we getting taxed so much in Massachusetts or in Boston, and then you hear the news day in and day out of of others that are going through having so much public benefits and whatever else in terms of with different populations, and especially with like you hear a lot of on the news, like it's almost like this one way or another, right? It gets very stratified, where it's like you also hear about where you got to have a balance of why are we in terms of the whether it be undocumented or illegal immigrant population, and where there's so many benefits to one group, but yet what about your residents and other people there? Like there's got to be a balance there. You can't, when you dump everything into one and versus another, right? Or when we talk about even voting populations, where there's those that are incarcerated or previously incarcerated that didn't know that they had a right to vote, right? Having that balance of like, okay, making sure that everyone who has a right to vote is aware of their right to vote, right? That balance there, and it doesn't seem like there's
the emphasis is sadly it's not on educating people as much as it is people depending on the system, because they want them to feel like if they don't stay in power, they're going to lose things, and people not realizing they're losing all of these things anyway. T, I want to get your take on this as well.
Yes, well, as a kid, growing up in Dorchester, Upham's Corner area, and back then there was a certain demographic that did these certain jobs. Today, a lot of them, not all, some of them are strung out on opioids and all this other stuff. The immigrants came and I saw the change and did those jobs. I've also seen when Trump first stole and did what he did and what he did, I'm not giving him any credit. He's not my president. Keep it real. Even the farmers out there were like, listen, I'm going to hire these folks from Guatemala, Mexico, because they're not stealing from me. They're showing up. They're working long hours. The folks the MAGA people, is the one who was like, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump because looking out for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the shift, because the immigrants took a lot of the jobs that they didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
But not only they didn't want it, the employers didn't want to hire them because they were lousy workers. They were stealing. They were showing up on drugs. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
The immigrants aren't doing that.
Yeah. And I think T. Michael, You make a great point too. Like, I think a lot of people aren't frustrated with the ones that are actually working. You know, they're making an effort. They're trying to contribute. They're being a part of the community, right? I think the people that are more frustrated with are the ones that we hear more about that aren't working, that aren't contributing, that are taking from public coffers and not necessarily contributing back. But part of it too is also, what are we hearing, right? Part of it too is like having that common sense of like, what are our politicians?
Right. But to that point, we've always had programs to bring people in during the harvest season, right? When they couldn't get free labor from slavery anymore, right? So they would bring people in and talk, because if these jobs were Americans wanted, why do we need to bring people in to bring in the crops? Because if you go out there, Americans aren't going to be out there in that hot sun, in this heat.
And you make a good point, because actually looking at it and looking it up, 22 to 23% of the total labor force in Massachusetts is made up of immigrants. And so even in the roughly about, it's reported that 24% of the labor workforce in the greater Boston metropolitan area are foreign-born workers. Yeah. So they do make up a high share of, for example, 38% of health aides, 29 to 30% of construction and STEM workers, and about 28% of manufacturing jobs.
I want to get Rhodes' take on this, because you're Haitian. I mean, are you talking to me? How is this impacting the community, and is this impacting any of your family and friends?
All I know is, like, personally, like, I do not know anyone in my family that is on the status or anything like that that's kind of worried, but we do know people that are definitely worried, and people are it affects them to the point where it's like they're afraid to go food shopping. They're afraid to go to
I'm delivering food to
they're afraid to just do normal things. Right. Like, some people are like, oh, we heard that ICE was in town, so we're not going to go to work today. And it's like, and again, like, do you blame them?
Well, no, I just saw on the news the other day, I think it might have been in Ohio, where there was a Haitian gentleman on his way to work. He sees these ICE agents, they tase him, and he falls, and he's all bruised up. And the Supreme Court has said mere flight alone is not probable cause. So if you see someone coming at you and you start running, that's not, how do they know he's not here? They had no paperwork that says he was in this country illegally. And a lot of these folks have had their work papers stopped because the temporary. So a lot of employers have let these people go
because their employment authorization documentation.
Exactly. So a lot of these folks are like saying, hey, this is where I'm getting the calls for more need in these communities, like as is Jamal, because they can't work. They were working. They weren't like they were living off the system, but now they can't even provide the basic necessities
for them to be here.
And that's, I think, part of where people are kind of like, again, back to our politicians about having more common sense, right? Because then all you hear more about how we're going with, in terms of like where the tax dollars and public benefits, whenever going towards people that aren't working. But then you also hear about, you don't hear as much about the ones, but you also don't hear as much about the ones that are working.
And I always say they're taking advantage of the system.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I think it's different though. It's not necessarily the taking advantage of the system, but also hearing about how you have, where Governor Maura Healey talks about having to need like however many millions to billions of dollars to support, some of these programs, where people aren't hearing about, okay, how is it helping everyone else, right? When you're making sure, when you're you have a sub, I think part of it too is also you have a segment of the population, right, where they aren't working. They are for whatever reason, the state deems it where they're paying for their housing and for their food and everything else. But then you have this other segment of the population out there that is working, right? That goes through all that to get the employment authorization.
But that segment doesn't have a monopoly on. There are a lot of people born in this country that have been gaming the system forever.
Exactly.
But that's my point, though. I'm saying that there are those that it seems like we have those that aren't working and gaming the system, and then we have those that are working. And yet, like, it's that common sense of, where's that common sense of splitting it up? Where, how about just going for the people that are clogging up our hospitals, clogging up our, public systems, taking the ones who are gaming the system, and like having those funds free up and give it to the ones that actually are trying to contribute to the community.
Because they don't want to clean up the system. The corruption is being supported some way or somehow. Someone's getting paid because of.
Well, I mean, just think about it. What the state auditor was trying to look into these, right? And the pushback.
Everyone from the
audit, where's the money going?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Why is it? And that makes me
That's
wonder.
their job.
And
How do the politicians benefit?
Massachusetts, believe it or not, is one of the least transparent states there are.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to
definitely believe that.
Yeah.
It's one of the least transparent states. So trying to figure out where the money is
Which doesn't give you the hypocrisy of how Mayor Michelle Wu is going to go talk about FOIA requests to ICE about parking spaces, but yet the city in and of itself has denied so many FOIA requests, and even like you just said, Massachusetts is one of the least transparent states out there.
But I also, to tie into this, and I'd love to get Jamal and T. Michael's take on this, and I'll start with Jamal after because I think people didn't pay much attention to, because this is just the start of it, right? With people who have temporary protective status, right? But if you go back, let me just say this, right? Because I promise I'll let you say what you, because when the Supreme Court recent decision on birthright citizenship, which my opinion should have been 9-0, right? Mm-hmm. It was 5-4, just like women's rights to for their bodies, right? That supposedly had been settled, right? I think people should be just as alarmed as what's happening here now and tying it, because a 5-4 decision, it's not a strong decision. Exactly. It's saying that, because what that signal to me is that they're working on eroding that. Yeah. If your parent was here illegally and you were birthed here, that no longer applies to you as being a citizen here. Yes. That's the slippery slope we're on right now.
But that's the thing too. And that means like eventually they can come back to be like, everyone's illegal here except for the Native American.
Right.
Okay. Right. That would be beautiful, I would say. But but bottom line is, the analogy I was gonna bring up is the fact that they're going after the least and the most vulnerable people in the population.
Look at the point that people don't care about them, right? Though they're here, they're taking it. They're sucking up right there,
bleaching off, giving a bad
leeching
image.
Off of
exactly.
Right.
Not understanding that these are the people that actually the backbone of the economy. They're working. They're not being represented. They have no actual representation, the right representation.
Well, people also see them as invisible, right? Because these are the jobs that, like you said, you go into nursing. Look, when my mom was sick before she passed, we had healthcare people coming in. There was not one American citizen that was taking care of my mom. Yeah. They were all Haitians.
Yes.
But that's my point, though. It's like, where are our political leaders and politicians in terms of applying that common sense, right? Of separating out.
I was going to use that Auschwitz, the Auschwitz poem. First they came for them, then they came for them, then they came finally for me. Yeah. So that's what they're starting. So again, they're starting with the people that are quote unquote invisible in society. But yes,
go ahead, Jamal. We're going to grab this in. We're going to get this other call. Good.
All right. So to exactly what you were saying, Rhodes. Quoting the Nazi thing. This all reeks of eugenics. Mm-hmm. Could we get rid of the undesirable people born? And undesirable just in general, because there are people out there. Larry, I took care of my grandmother as well. And luckily we were able, after much finagling, to get people to come in to help, and I was so glad to be relieved, because I never thought I'd be bathing my grandmother.
Believe you me, it's a mental toll for you to even think about doing that.
What? Hello?
Yes.
So all I'm saying is, when we start doing that undesirable thing, at least for me, we got to be real careful, because we resemble the undesirable.
Hello.
And
they look just like us.
Hello.
Yeah, exactly. That line will start going up. They'll be like, "Oh, okay, well, boom, out of it." Boom. They were cool with getting rid of this.
And then the real, I think the real criminals is actually ICE. I think the fact that they're Trump's private army, they do not.
Also,
they don't abide by the laws of the country.
because they're lawless. But also, like I said, they didn't think black people were humans, right? We weren't even a total human being.
And Chinese people were one of the only. Were the only
that's what
people
written
that
in the Constitution. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, again, remember when the Constitution was being formed back in the 1700s? It was the convention of the well-bred, well-fed, well-wed, and well. And well, I can't remember. There were 4 things: well-bred, well-read, well-fed, and I can't remember.
And the ones I can remember.
And I know what you mean too, because they're all also like
the well-wed.
Well-wed.
Well, yes, the well-wed.
So let's grab this call from, I think it's Siddiqui.
Yes,
Siddiqui, we woke you up. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the round table.
Well, I don't know if you woke me up. Glad to be here. But let me just say this: that with everything that's happened with the Haitian community and the exploitation of what happened, look, we know that Trump and his policy and his people, first of all, they're freaking out because there's predictions about the fact that at some point in time in the next 100 years, there won't be any white people on this planet. But the biggest thing is that, is there a positive that comes out of this whole thing, like what's happening in the Haitians? You know, we've been trained as black people to, in fact, get into that whole division thing. Like, for instance, I saw a piece a couple of years ago where a dark-skinned brother from the Dominican Republic, they share the same island as Haiti, talking about them Haitians gotta go. So the bottom line is that, yeah, this is ugly, but also at the same time, it sends a clear message. Like when I hear people saying, well, I'm Haitian, like they're different from me, or I'm Nigerian. Folks talk about based on where they are from, like that's who they are in terms of their being here on this planet. Look, we are all
human,
African/black people.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
This is a clear message that if you got
division,
divide and conquer,
then we in this together. So I think that's a positive that's going to come out of this, saying this is the message.
I hope you're right, because Siddiqui, to your point, I remember when this was going on, when they were housing a lot of Haitians over at the Shelbourne Center, and people were complaining about that, and there were folks from the community who were trying to. I'm like, folks, this is now the other folks are doing it too.
What was the complaint?
The complaint was that they're taking resources from the community.
It was basically get those Haitians out of there, and it was one of the most disgusting chapters in all black community history that I've ever seen or witnessed, and I was disgusted.
Right, me too, Jamal. That's why I said, like, we can't be hypocrites because we were doing it to our own, right? And I appreciate what Siddiqui is saying is that we were acting like Trump and them acting now.
But I think part of it too, though, isn't it? Like also because there's a level of indiscriminacy to it, right? Like we want to make sure that the bad people are taken out of the community, the ones that are harming other people.
No, this was just this was a blanket. This was a blanket.
Yes, exactly.
Because they didn't have any space. I mean, these families. I remember,
and they were families, exactly.
Right.
People,
but that's
kids.
what I'm saying about common sense, right? Having common sense.
It was just let's buy into this.
They're dangerous. They're eating the cats and the dogs.
Right.
He literally said that, and people believed him.
Listen, the rhetoric, and as a kid, born in the 70s, but in the 80s and all this, there were Haitians who were here who were lying to say that they were Jamaican.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that as a kid.
Scorn.
Yeah.
With African bush boogie and
yeah,
all this
I remember that
stuff, and the teasing and everything. So, for me, and Siddiqui knows this, as a black nationalist, as a Pan-Africanist, we're dealing with the, entirety of the African diaspora.
Amen.
Yes. Many languages, many places of points of origin, but the original origin goes back to one source. And also, too, the one thing that kills me about the anti-Haitian stuff is Haiti is the granddaddy of
freedom.
Revolution.
Yes. Right. That's why they're the biggest target.
America would not be what America is today if it wasn't for the Haitian Revolution. 1804.
Some of our greatest revolutionaries come out of that, and so I don't get how this now became the thing to scorn.
Because people promote it. Pastor Hobbs, and we're going to get to, he had some comments.
Comment. Brother Eric Kennedy saying good morning. He also says, interesting topic. I'm not happy that out-of-state government is applied. I think he meant to say our state government is applied for assistance going through this and was told I didn't qualify. But yet people come here from all over legally or not, and they get everything.
They don't get everything.
I'm just telling you what the brother's comment is, right?
Show me everything that they've gotten.
I'm just giving.
But there have been reports.
There are other comments. So Tito Lozano says, "Good morning. It's not a problem until it affects me, quote unquote."
Amen.
And Eric says, "I'm about to be homeless because I can't get rent assistance."
But that's not because of the Haitians that are here.
The Haitians aren't getting rent assistance.
We spend billions of dollars. I remember, when this first started and there was a lot of unrest going on across with the George Floyd, and they had a stage down at the transportation building downtown, and there were Haitian families that because the building is operational during the day, they had to leave out. They didn't even have showers or anything for them. They had to go all the way to Quincy and they had to come back and register. And I just happened to be in there, and because we were working and we were staged in there. And I look down and I see all these families in the lobby, these people with their kids and stuff. And I'm just saying to myself, wow. Imagine if that was me. These were families, and you have to look into if you have any the humanity,
the compassion,
and
heart,
saying that let's just put it like to say with Dr. Brown, where the goats can get it right. There's certain neighborhoods in this city that I won't want to raise my children in because it's not safe, and people move out of them. Why do you think somebody, if they're in a country where it's not safe and they care about their loved ones and they can try to get better for them, we should be angry at them for that?
No, I completely agree with you, and that's a whole.
I just got that part.
But my the point in regards to that is that again, it's the whole divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Okay. They've taken these are victims. These are people.
But we buy into it. Like Jick said, we were down there.
They're seeking asylum. Yes.
Protesting the Shelbourne Center. Go ahead, T.
It's something that I really need to really chime in there. That some folks say these people, they call it white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
They're not supreme. What that is guilt that leads to fear that manifests into hate.
Fear that leads to guilt to hate.
Yeah.
I think part of it too, though, is also for example, I have family that I remember as a kid helping my mother fill out immigration paperwork, and for my aunt, my uncle, and cousin, and it took 20 years for them to be able to immigrate. Legally immigrate.
So the process is broken, and that's been
but
said.
Here's the thing.
Was been said for years, even before Obama came in. They said the process to become a U.S. citizen is broken.
But the thing is, they weren't allowed to work for, I believe it was from a year up to 3 or 5 years until they got all the right paperwork, and they were required to essentially my mother and my parents had to sign all these documents that they would sponsor them and basically house and clothe and feed them for however long. After they got here. But yet then you have situations like those, and I know my family's not unique in that perspective. So you have all the families that legally immigrated, went through all that paperwork and all that time and everything else, shelling money out of their own pocket to make sure that their family could come over. And then you have others that come over illegally, otherwise not going through that process, but they're getting almost cutting everyone else in front of the line.
But here's the thing: how many
getting
people,
benefits that they don't necessarily get.
I think people should,
and that's where that frustration is.
But it's not shared equally, right? Because when this conversation, and we talking about Italians, Irish people, Europeans.
We actually remember in Boston, Massachusetts, we had the highest illegal Irish immigrant population. People don't realize that.
Are they going after them?
That's a good.
You see ICE in any of those neighborhoods? That's the part I'm saying, is that if you're going to do this enforcement, right? Because
do it equally, illegally.
Exactly. You're not talking about, Donald Trump, 2 of his wives were here,
illegally.
And
didn't she get a special visa?
Exactly.
For her
parents. And he made her parents citizens. So this isn't. They make it seem like it's our folks that are always the worst of the worst. When Trump came down the escalator, he said, the Mexicans. And if people understand, Texas, California, all that was part of Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. We encroached on them. They
U.S., Canada, and Mexico all have birthright citizenship.
Right. So Siddiqui, I like where you're going to. How do we start moving in the right direction, like I said, and getting? Because I think we're kind of in agreement here that we have to stop looking at each other as other, right? Mm-hmm. Because then we become the other. Mm-hmm. The Jewish community learned that lesson. We haven't, right? They never again. They're not, you can be an Orthodox Jew, whatever, you're Jewish, right? And we may not always agree, but we're not going to allow anyone to come in and attack you and say you don't belong. You're not part. How do we get moving in the right direction?
Yeah, well, I think the bottom line is that it's about circumstance, and that the reality of what's going on out here. First of all, like I said before, that based on what's going on, people saying, "Oh, what's Trump?" Blah blah blah. And I said, "Look, I respect Trump because of the fact that he's an honest white man. He says I don't like black people. I'm not doing enough for black people. What are you gonna do for yourself?" So I think more and more talk about black people talk about coming together. But let me just say this in closing: is that what's going on out here right now? Is people are saying, "Oh, they can't wait till he's out of office." I said, "Look, it's not about him being out of office because of the fact that all he's done is
echoed with
the policies are there, the people that underneath him.
Right.
And there were a lot of policies that were there before he was there.
Yeah, the real issue at hand is that there's white paranoia. It's predicted, as I said before, that within 100 and 125 years, there won't be any white people on this planet. And so they're freaking out. I saw a piece recently where they said that white women are on, and this is a white panel, they said that they're only having 2.7 babies per family. And this person on the panel said, hold it, it's down to 1.93 and declining. So they're freaking out because they know their very existence is in fact in jeopardy. So
but again,
we just have to come together and do what we got to do for ourselves. Like in Africa, they said 80 million individuals over there are 25 and under, and don't underestimate our young people here. They're not going to put up with a lot of this going on. So we just got to come together.
Right. No, let me tell you, to that point, Siddiqui, one of the proudest achievements I felt like as president of MAMLEO was not the lawsuits I brought about the discrimination in law enforcement, but was trying to bridge that gap between the different fractions and the different cultures in our organization, and seeing all of us as one, our brothers and sisters, and people became very comfortable. That's the proudest achievement I felt like that I could contribute to that is that we stop looking at each other. I mean, look, it looks like the Benetton commercial here, right?
What happened to them? They got shut down.
Well,
oh wow, they did go through. I remember as a teenager there was some controversy because and stuff like that.
Ad, it was like they had different people, different ethnicities.
Well, even my husband and I talk about it. It's like we're an interracial couple, right? And that they're up until within our lifetimes, there were still states that we wouldn't be legally allowed to be married.
But just the whole idea.
People get surprised at that.
No, they do, but it's true. But those kind of laws were being passed even like before, like the founding of the state of Maryland. That was one of the laws that they passed. That they could not be interracial marriages because, again, white fear at that point in time.
Well, not even white fear.
Well,
I've seen some cultures. Like there are some cultures that are more tightly knit than others. Like where it's like
back then the reason why it was like remember this was when they started importing black slaves. They had indentured servants. A lot of people.
But where was the number on immigration back then? Right?
Thank you. They could keep importing.
I don't think they were tracking it back then.
Yeah. No, they were tracking it.
They?
Oh, because they had insurance on them. Like
you're talking about when Maryland became a state.
No, I'm talking about during slavery. When they could bring as many as they could get on the boat.
We were inventory when we were actually product. Yes, they had records of it. They didn't actually give us actual names until you were named by your master or whatever. But that's another crazy thing. I like the idea of like the concept of ownership, because again, the Native Americans said greed is a form of violence. It's the overextension of your existence on this planet, on this plane. So when the Europeans, again, I say Europeans because I don't want to say the white man, but when the Europeans came here, they challenged that concept because they said, look, when you came here, the land, the tree, the moon, the sky, the mountain, everything was here. And when you die, everything's going to be here. How the hell can it be yours? It can't be yours. It belongs to God. And that's why they got rid of the Native Americans, because they challenged the concept of ownership. They're like, you can't own anything. It belongs to God.
Right.
Oh, that does remind me of wasn't there a recent lawsuit where people were arguing about who can truly own between like, it was like a Native American and like their tribe versus like the U.S. government, and the U.S. government coming after, I think it was.
Yeah.
Like, because you're under the U.S. government, the U.S. courts, and the U.S. courts was like, oh, no, we're not going to it's not going to be the Native American tribe that owned it, even though they were there before, because the U.S. government established that property ownership. So then they made that law like overrule it. But I think part of it too is also gets back to some of our earlier conversation, right? Where we talked about how part of it is, where is this a lot of the economic downturn that's happening, the high interest rates, people are feeling very pressured right now, right? They're under a lot of
like I said,
stress.
so they're trying to make money on our backs.
Right.
Yes.
Let's collaborate. Cliff, good morning. Welcome to the round table.
Good morning. How you doing?
We're doing well, Cliff. Help us out here, brother.
All right. I want to ask Helen, is Honduras one of the countries on that list too?
I didn't see Honduras as one of the countries on the list that's immediately losing temporary protective status, but I can pull it back up again and let you know.
Okay, can you pull that back up for me?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so right now we have El Salvador is going to be expired September 9th, Sudan October 19th, Ukraine October 19th, Lebanon November 27th, Venezuela, Haiti, Somalia, Yemen, are already either expired or being expired. Honduras is not on that list, but I can look that up as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Oh, actually, no. Temporary protected status for Honduras is terminated. The formal termination took effect on September 8th, 2025. In subsequent appellate rulings in February 2026 allowed the termination and loss. So actually, Honduras has already been terminated.
Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know.
So any employment authorization documents tied to the Honduran temporary protected status designation are no longer valid.
You see what we say? You come for one and then you come. See, this is
that already happened.
Cliff, why we've been talking about why we have to unify our voice, right? Because like people don't know this. They, oh, okay, well, it's just a Haitian problem. It's just El Salvador. It's just a Venezuelan problem. No, Cliff didn't even know it was his problem, right? Oh, you know that he know.
Right.
This is why we try to, like I said, why we talk about Boston Praise Radio. No one's going to talk about our problems the way we talk about our problem as in depth as our problem. This is why we tend to look. MAMLEO will be fine. Our organization is strong. You know, it's tough getting the younger officers to understand the importance of what we do here.
They will come for you eventually. Is what was it they used to say all the time?
If you're here long enough, you'll get a turn.
Yes,
right.
That's what it was.
This is it applies to this as well, right? Because you say, oh, we're only going after that population, and now Cliff is saying, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was last year.
People that look like me are on the list as well, and that list is only going to keep growing.
But I do want to make a note, and I apologize because I didn't hear who exactly it came from. One of our callers had mentioned about having trouble getting rental assistance. So if any of our listeners have any suggestions or advice, I think that's something to help each other out.
And I'm going to go back to T. Michael. That a lot of that has nothing to do with the Haitians. It has nothing. It has to do with the increases.
I'm not saying it has to do with the Haitians. I'm saying like
no, but I'm saying is
keep in mind we have a community member that's asking for help.
Folks are thinking that all that money is being spent on these other populations. That's just the narrative they want you to believe, so you can be angry at that population. The state budget is almost $60 billion, probably in excess of that. The cities is somewhere around $7 billion. They spend their money where they choose to, right? And it's not on the folks like Eric who might need some assistance. But it's not that because they're shifting that money towards another population. It's just that they're giving $140 million to the folks up at the White Stadium, right? If you have $140 million for that, so you can't help out a resident with their problems. That's how you.
Yeah, just gonna say so. But to your point, right? So Brother Eric, who is our family, right?
Yes, absolutely.
He just to respond to his practical need, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. It's not a limit. The
I'm
resources,
not trying to connect it. I'm
right.
Bring it back out.
Focusing on that there is a need, right?
Absolutely.
And so I appreciate that. So because Eric, what people may not know, is actually in the hospital. He's actually in a rehab. Okay. Unfortunately, he had major surgery, and unfortunately, as a complication of his health situation, he diabetes. He actually lost all of his toes on a foot, and so he is just going through a challenging time. And while he's there, he's not able to work, and so his apartment is in jeopardy. So there may be resources that people know. I'm going to see what I can do to help him to kind of get while he's institutionalized, recovering, that they will pay his rent.
There are actually state and federal programs. They call it, especially if you're in the hospital, currently hospitalized, it's called like compassionate something allowance, where you can, as long as your doctors fill out the forms for you, you can actually stop a lot of like the processes and stuff like that.
They're supposed to, it's supposed to be caseworkers, right? That's what I'm gonna see if I can check.
The hospital is supposed to have like
caseworkers,
social workers that are supposed to help
address those kinds of things.
that stuff.
But they're overwhelmed because they got
one
caseworker has 100 Erics that they're trying to find and trying to find housing in a city that has become unaffordable. That's the problem as well.
Well, he actually has housing. It's to pay the rent because he's not in a position to work while he's recovering to pay his rent.
Or if there's a way to negotiate through actually, yes, there is a program. It's called it's a state program. They call it it's like a pay for your. It will help pay the rent. Okay, while you're hospitalized.
We'll figure that part out to try to get him the help he needs. See, Michael, before we let you go, any final comments because we're running up against the clock.
It's important. It's simple. Listen to the whole conversation. what we're saying is we're at a crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
All we need is the mayor to sign off on the land so we can build. We have our own funding. The land is already designated through a process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to the leaders, the elected officials, and the mayor to simply say, hey, here is a program. Has its own funding. We're not refusing money. They gave money to White Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
We won't refuse it. But right now, we have the money to build it ourselves.
Yeah.
Sign off on the document. Let us put the shovel in the ground.
There we go.
Great show, and I will be listening.
All right, thanks. So, Cliff, before we go back to Jamal, now that you know that folks that look like you are in danger here, because this is why, you know, we said we got to get you back in studio, is why we talk about why, you know, early on when we first met, was we were talking about this division that has been really tearing us apart, and I like what Jamal and Sadiq are saying, because if we can get more people to realize that we are more powerful together than this division, well, we could take over things.
Right. And Larry, if you will let me be on your show next week to talk about it.
Come on down, like Bob Baca said.
All right, I'll be down next week to talk about it.
Okay.
But like I said, I didn't know my country was on the list of that.
Oh yeah, expired September last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right, my family members that I talk to, they're scared even to go outside. They're scared even to speak Spanish around certain people.
Yeah, and that's sad. That's sad. This is what I'm saying, is that they're coming for folks. Matter of fact, they're already coming for folks, and you can say you didn't even know that they were coming for people in your neighborhood, your family members. And like I said, I think people sadly wait until it affects them personally, and then they get a little bothered by it. But I'm like, by then it's too late. It's too late. Jamal, I want to get your take on what you've heard, and what Cliff is saying. He didn't know that even Hondurans were on the list.
I want everybody to hear this clearly. I believe everybody should go back where they came from. But keeping with American tradition, the white people should go first.
Okay. Right. Lead by example, right?
When you go back to England and Scotland and Finland and, all this type of stuff, then we could talk about who needs to go where. Because that's the thing that has always amazed me. The street slang is the caucasity of it.
Mm-hmm.
Where, white folks have really claimed ownership of this place that ain't theirs.
Right. It's the reason why they left England, because they said, taxation without representation, right? That they felt like they couldn't be. And now we're trying to turn the tables on folks. And you're right, Jamal, to try to take ownership of something that doesn't belong to them.
And also on an important note too, when we talk about like property ownership and living expenses and so forth, you should be aware that Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is calling for a state to end Proposition 2.5, which is a long-standing law that caps how much cities and towns can raise property taxes. Because she's been arguing, it's reported,
but yet she wants to implement rent control, which is on people realize that's only going to increase the rents. But even if you cap it at where it is now,
but she's trying to remove it so that they can't be limited, so that there can't be a 2.5%
that's why
limit
she doesn't want Nick Collins
taxes.
Right.
But that was actually you read my mind. That's where I was going. So that's why it's so important that if you're not registered to vote, today's your last day to register to vote. And if you are registered to vote, definitely do your research, because there are those senators like Nick Collins who are on the ballot that you should research and be able to make sure the people that are there to vote so that things like this can't be removed and repealed, because then at that point you'd have no limit on how high taxes would go.
You really want to leave politicians in charge of your finances, right? I mean, at the federal level, $40 trillion debt. The city is now saying they don't have any money, but yet they're going to make better decisions if you give them more of your money. I mean, folks, pay attention.
And look at it. Senator Nick Collins has been one of the loudest voices against all the things that Michelle Wu has been doing,
but not just a voice, but action, but actually getting at the state level to implement laws to protect people from being overtaxed. I mean, that's a bad thing.
And that's the thing, is it breaks my heart a bit too. Like, having been, born in the city, grew up in, the city, like my parents, started off in Chinatown, and it's like, and to see the state that the city has become, right? And a lot of it is the politicians, some of these politicians that don't look out for the best interests of our fellow neighbors and our fellow residents and so forth, right? And so like where, you know, you have those politicians that do try to make an effort. We've seen Senator Collins talk about how he brought to light the fact that how much of a rainy day fund did the city of Boston have?
They said they had $500 million, and we find out it's like almost $1.2 billion.
Well, and yet somehow
it's pouring.
And what was the excuse for raising taxes, real estate taxes on all of us? Because they needed to bridge a gap.
Right. We need slush fund. Right. We need to take more of your money that you don't have. Right. I don't know what they think. The public has more money that they can print, or they can go. I can't go next door to my neighbor and raid their refrigerator because mine is empty.
Right.
You know, just doesn't work that way. But you know, politicians, they can just say, you know, you figure out how you, and you know, it was just ironic and almost insulting on the last tax bill. Oh, well, if you don't have enough, just send us what you can and we'll continue to charge you interest on what's outstanding. I'm like, they've never allowed you to make installments on your tax. Now, all of a sudden, because they know it's so high, that's the only way people can at least give them some of their money. Cliff, thank you, sir. We look forward to having you next week.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll see you at 8:00. You can come in at 7. You can do the whole. You be here. You know, come in
You'll
early.
be here for the full 2 hours.
Come here. Come early. Come often. And make sure you go out and vote today, brother. If you can.
Right.
If you can.
And register if you haven't registered yet.
Jamal,
Gotcha.
I like the way you're going with this. Again, you know, I ask you because I have a lot of love and respect for you. How do we kind of pivot this? You know, like expand this, because there seem to be like minds at the table today. But a lot of our folks still have that animosity that I'm not them until they become them.
Yeah, folks such as ourselves, you know, Hobbs, you know, Ron Bell, you know, all this. We should probably just have an offline meeting and really, you know, because we've talked about it, but we've never really did a super strategy session to figure out how we could all plug in and expand the thing.
So,
but like I said,
how do we set that up?
And some of those ideas, you know, that I said already, like I said, I already activated on. This is always a good place to have conversation. These thoughts come and, you know, activate on them. So, yeah, I think
it goes back to Jamal, not to cut you, to why we need to be having this conversation, not just on Saturday morning, but Monday through Friday, and why people need to support this broadcast, not this broadcast in particular, but this radio station, so that we can continue this, because this needs to be hammered in every day, not once a week.
Right. And, you know, to the civics thing, and, you know, we need a major voting drive. We need to do something to make it sexy.
Yeah.
You know, in times past, it was done by, you know, some people that we just need to kind of recapture some of that. Some of that was correct. Now, you know, Puff Daddy, you know, now he's in infamy. But at the time, he had a campaign called Vote or Die. You know, I didn't even like that then, just because of the name of it. Yeah, I didn't like that. But, you know, it was an effort of hip hop. Also, too, you know, Russell Simmons, back in the day had something. I believe we need something on that level, whether it's a national thing or a local thing, to you know, make voting great again.
Right. I like that. I like that.
Make voting great again. I love that. Make voting great again.
I would say definitely voting. And then also, again, I would also push, too, like for when it comes to that, registering to vote, and then also check your organ donation status too.
Yeah, Jamal, thank you, brother. We've got to run. We got a minute left.
Again,
let's continue to work on that, because I think
that's
also
a great idea.
Pulling up some of the history of what happened to our folks just trying to vote, because sometimes that image should shock you.
Yes, the water hoses, the dogs being lynched out.
Exactly,
like the litmus test.
This is real. Right, this is real.
Yeah.
How many bubbles in the bar soap? Right, yeah, exactly. Jamal, thank you, brother. I will see you tomorrow morning. Thank you. Well, folks, yes, like I said, today is early voting. Helen, where can they?
Last day. This is the last day that you're allowed to register to vote as well. But also, I think a key thing too to remember for those of you that are looking between today and tomorrow, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. today and tomorrow, you can go to actually register to vote early voting for those of you that are registered. But Mattapan. Mattapan with the and Mildred Ave, South Boston, Condon Elementary, Dorchester, Murphy School, Jamaica Plain, Mooney's Academy, Hyde Park, another course to college, West Roxbury, right?
All right.
I
Show
need
us, Center.
glasses.
Yeah, that's, or longer arms.
A very long
All
list.
right. All
We
right.
will publish the list online for
exactly.
y'all.
Brother Rhodes?
Stay blessed. Or be blessed.
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game. It ain't a challenge if your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping? Why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'? You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya. No, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.
I always